Stories and Documentary Network. The Dutch Empire stands as a testament to the era of European exploration, trade expansion, and colonial dominance that reshaped the course of world history. Emerging during the Age of Discovery in the late 16th century, the Dutch Empire quickly rose to prominence as a formidable force in global affairs, spanning continents and oceans with its network of colonies, trading posts, and commercial enterprises. From the bustling ports of Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, to the lucrative spice plantations of the East Indies and the bustling streets of New Amsterdam, now New York City, the Dutch Empire left an indelible mark on the landscapes it touched. Understanding the historical significance of the Dutch Empire is crucial for comprehending the broader dynamics of global colonialism. Unlike its European counterparts, the Dutch approach to empire building was characterized by pragmatism, entrepreneurial spirit, and a keen focus on trade and commerce. This unique strategy not only fueled economic prosperity but also contributed to significant advancements in navigation, cartography, and international law. Moreover, the Dutch Empire's legacy extends beyond mere territorial expansion. It influenced cultural exchange, scientific innovation, and the development of modern capitalism. In today's world, grappling with the complexities of colonial history requires a nuanced understanding of the Dutch Empire's multifaceted impact. By examining its rise, expansion, challenges, and eventual decline, we gain insights into the enduring legacies of empire, the complexities of cultural interaction, and the enduring tensions between economic exploitation and cultural exchange. As we embark on a journey through the annals of Dutch colonial history, we uncover not only tales of conquest and trade but also stories of resilience, resistance, and adaptation that resonate profoundly in our interconnected global society. The Dutch quest for overseas territories was motivated primarily by economic interests. With established trade routes to the east under the control of the Portuguese and Spanish empires, the Dutch sought alternative passages to the lucrative markets of Asia. These endeavors were fueled by the desire for direct access to spices, silk, porcelain, and other valuable commodities that held immense economic potential in Europe. Furthermore, competition among European powers, particularly with the Portuguese and later the Spanish, intensified as each sought to dominate global trade routes and secure monopolies over coveted resources. This competitive drive spurred the Dutch to challenge existing colonial powers and establish their own network of trading posts and colonies. In 1602, the Dutch government granted a charter to the Dutch East India Company, VOC, a pioneering joint stock company tasked with overseeing and expanding Dutch trade in Asia. The VOC quickly became the world's first multinational corporation, wielding significant economic and military power in the region. Its establishment marked a pivotal moment in the history of corporate governance and colonial expansion. Simultaneously, the Dutch West India Company, WIC, was founded in 1621 to manage and profit from trade in the Americas and Africa. The WIC focused primarily on activities such as the slave trade, sugar production, and territorial acquisition in regions such as Brazil and the Caribbean. Willem Barents, renowned Dutch navigator and explorer, played a crucial role in early Dutch expeditions. He is best known for his attempts to discover a northeast passage to Asia, leading several Arctic expeditions in the late 16th century. Jan Pieterszoon Coen, a prominent figure in Dutch colonial history, served as Governor-General of the Dutch East Indies from 1618 to 1623 and again from 1627 to 1629. Coen was instrumental in consolidating Dutch control over the East Indies, establishing Batavia as the VOC's headquarters, and implementing policies to maximize Dutch dominance in the spice trade. The Dutch Empire's early colonies were strategically located across Asia, the Americas, and Africa, contributing to its global influence. In the East Indies, the Dutch established a strong presence on the Spice Islands, Maluku Islands, where they monopolized the lucrative nutmeg and clove trade, challenging Portuguese dominance in the region. In the Americas, the Dutch West India Company gained control over territories such as northeastern Brazil, where they engaged in sugar production and the transatlantic slave trade. The colony of New Netherlands, modern-day New York, was founded in 1624, serving as a crucial trading hub for fur and agricultural products. The Dutch East India Company, VOC, was established in 1602 with a charter granting it a monopoly over Dutch trade in Asia. Under the VOC's auspices, the Dutch Republic expanded its influence across the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia, establishing a vast network of trading posts, warehouses, and fortresses. The VOC not only facilitated the transportation of spices, silk, tea, and porcelain from Asia to Europe but also engaged in intra-Asian trade, enhancing its commercial reach and profitability. The VOC's organizational structure, characterized by its quasi-governmental powers and decentralized management, enabled efficient resource allocation and risk management across its expansive maritime empire. This structure also contributed to the VOC's ability to maintain military forces, negotiate treaties, and govern territories independently of the Dutch government, exemplifying early forms of corporate governance and colonial administration. Central to the VOC's success was its monopoly over the spice trade, particularly in the Spice Islands, Maluku Islands, where nutmeg, cloves, and mace were cultivated. The VOC's control over these valuable commodities not only generated substantial revenues but also facilitated the integration of European markets into global trade networks, stimulating economic growth and cultural exchange. The establishment of trading posts, such as Batavia, modern-day Jakarta, in the East Indies, served as pivotal hubs for Dutch commercial activities. These fortified settlements not only functioned as centers for trade and administration but also facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies between Europe, Asia, and beyond. The VOC's strategic investments in infrastructure, including harbors, warehouses, and shipyards, further enhanced its logistical capabilities and reinforced Dutch dominance in maritime commerce. The Dutch Republic's maritime supremacy during the Golden Age was underpinned by its advanced shipbuilding techniques, navigational expertise, and robust financial infrastructure. Dutch merchant ships, characterized by their speed and cargo capacity, dominated trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, facilitating the efficient exchange of goods and capital. Moreover, Amsterdam emerged as a leading financial center, attracting merchants, investors, and entrepreneurs from across Europe. The city's sophisticated banking system, including the establishment of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange in 1602, facilitated the financing of VOC expeditions and commercial ventures, providing a stable foundation for Dutch economic expansion and prosperity. Dutch colonial rule was organized hierarchically, with ultimate authority vested in the governors-general appointed by the VOC or the Dutch government. Governors-general wielded considerable power, overseeing military, administrative, and economic affairs within their respective territories. They were supported by councils composed of senior VOC officials and local representatives, tasked with advising on policy matters and ensuring compliance with Dutch regulations. At the local level, Dutch colonies were governed through a system of local administrations, often comprised of Dutch-appointed officials and indigenous intermediaries. These administrations were responsible for managing day-to-day affairs, collecting taxes, maintaining order, and implementing colonial policies. Dutch policies towards indigenous populations varied significantly depending on local circumstances and economic interests. In some regions, such as the East Indies, the Dutch pursued policies of assimilation aimed at integrating indigenous elites into colonial governance structures. This approach facilitated cooperation and stability while enabling the exploitation of local resources and labor. However, resistance to Dutch colonial rule was widespread, particularly among communities subjected to forced labor, taxation, and land expropriation. Indigenous resistance often took the form of armed uprisings, guerrilla warfare, and diplomatic negotiations aimed at preserving autonomy and cultural identity. Cultural exchange between Dutch settlers and indigenous populations also occurred, albeit unevenly. Dutch merchants, missionaries, and officials interacted with local communities, exchanging goods, ideas, and religious beliefs. This cultural exchange contributed to the hybridization of societies, influencing language, cuisine, architecture, and social customs in Dutch colonies. Batavia, Jakarta, established as the VOC's administrative center in the East Indies, Batavia exemplified Dutch colonial urban planning and governance. The city served as a hub for trade, commerce, and cultural exchange, attracting merchants, craftsmen, and migrants from diverse backgrounds. Dutch colonial policies in Batavia aimed at maximizing economic productivity and maintaining social order, albeit at the expense of indigenous communities and local autonomy. Cape Colony. In southern Africa, the Dutch East India Company established the Cape Colony as a strategic outpost for supplying VOC ships en route to Asia. Dutch settlers, known as Boers, established agricultural settlements and engaged in conflicts with indigenous Khoikhoi and San peoples over land and resources. The colony's governance reflected tensions between Dutch settlers, indigenous communities, and VOC authorities, shaping patterns of racial segregation and socioeconomic inequality. Suriname. Located in South America, Suriname became a Dutch colony in the 17th century, primarily focused on sugar cultivation and slave labor. Dutch planters imported enslaved Africans to work on sugar plantations, contributing to the colony's economic prosperity but also perpetuating systems of exploitation and racial oppression. Suriname's diverse population, including indigenous peoples, African slaves, and European settlers, influenced its cultural landscape and social dynamics under Dutch colonial rule. Dutch colonial ventures facilitated significant cultural exchanges, influencing language, architecture, art, and cuisine in regions under their control. Dutch settlers introduced their language, Dutch, which in some cases amalgamated with local languages to create Creole languages. Architecturally, Dutch colonial cities such as Batavia, Jakarta, and Paramaribo, Suriname, showcased distinctive Dutch styles blended with indigenous and Asian influences, characterized by gabled roofs, canals, and fortifications. Artistically, Dutch painters like Albert Eckhout and Frans Post captured the landscapes, flora, and fauna of the Americas and Asia, contributing to European understanding and fascination with the exotic lands. Dutch cuisine also underwent transformations, incorporating ingredients and culinary techniques from colonies, such as spices from the East Indies and sugar from the Caribbean, enriching Dutch culinary traditions. The Dutch Golden Age, 17th century, marked a period of remarkable scientific and intellectual advancements fueled by the wealth generated from colonial trade. Dutch scholars and scientists made significant contributions to fields such as cartography, e.g., Willem Bleu, natural history, e.g., Antony van Leeuwenhoek, and astronomy, e.g., Christiaan Huygens. These advancements not only expanded European knowledge of the world but also laid the groundwork for modern scientific inquiry and exploration. Intellectually, the Dutch Republic fostered a climate of tolerance and intellectual freedom, attracting thinkers, philosophers, and artists from across Europe. The University of Leiden, founded in 1575, became a center of learning and scholarship, promoting academic exchange and the dissemination of new ideas. Unlike some European colonial powers, the Dutch Empire exhibited relative tolerance towards religious and cultural diversity within its colonies. In places like Batavia and Suriname, diverse populations coexisted, including Dutch settlers, indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans, and migrants from Asia. This cultural diversity contributed to vibrant hybrid cultures and communities, characterized by syncretic religious practices, multilingualism, and cultural exchange. Moreover, the Dutch legal system incorporated local customary laws and practices, recognizing the autonomy of indigenous leaders and communities to a certain extent. This policy of accommodation facilitated pragmatic governance and economic cooperation, albeit within the framework of Dutch colonial control. The Dutch Republic faced repeated conflicts with England and other European powers throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. These wars, often driven by competition for colonial territories, trade routes, and maritime supremacy, strained Dutch resources and weakened its global position. The Anglo-Dutch Wars, in particular, saw battles over control of trade routes, colonial possessions in the East Indies, and naval dominance in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 marked a turning point, signaling a decline in Dutch maritime power and ceding several colonial possessions to England and France. Subsequent conflicts further eroded Dutch influence in global affairs, leading to a gradual shift towards a more limited role in international trade and colonial administration. The Dutch Empire's economic foundations began to falter in the 18th century due to a combination of factors. Economic competition from emerging colonial powers, such as Britain and France, challenged Dutch dominance in global trade networks. Moreover, internal economic challenges, including financial mismanagement and declining profitability of colonial ventures, undermined the VOC and WIC's effectiveness as colonial administrators. To address these issues, the Dutch government undertook efforts to restructure colonial enterprises and consolidate control over remaining territories. The VOC, facing bankruptcy, was dissolved in 1799, with its assets and territories transferred to the Dutch state. The WIC similarly faced financial difficulties and was dissolved in 1791, with its colonies in the Americas and Africa gradually falling under direct Dutch control or being ceded to other European powers. The abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in the early 19th century had profound implications for Dutch colonial economies, particularly in the Americas and the Caribbean. Dutch involvement in the slave trade, primarily through the WIC, had been crucial to the profitability of sugar plantations in colonies like Suriname and Curaçao. With the abolition of the slave trade in 1814 and subsequent emancipation movements, Dutch colonies faced economic restructuring and social upheaval. Plantation owners struggled to adapt to new labor systems, including indentured servitude and contract labor from Asia. The decline of sugar production and the plantation economy in the Caribbean, coupled with competition from British and French colonies, further weakened Dutch economic influence in the region. The Dutch Empire's impact is evident in the legal systems of former colonies, where Dutch legal principles and institutions have influenced governance structures and judicial frameworks. Countries like Indonesia, Suriname, and parts of the Caribbean retain elements of Dutch civil law, administrative practices, and urban planning introduced during colonial rule. Language also serves as a lasting legacy, with Dutch and Creole languages derived from Dutch widely spoken in former colonies. In regions like Suriname and the Dutch Antilles, Dutch remains an official language alongside local languages, reflecting historical ties and ongoing cultural exchange. Infrastructure developments initiated by the Dutch, such as canals, roads, and urban layouts, continue to shape the physical landscapes of former Dutch colonies. Cities like Paramaribo, Suriname, and Willemstad, Curaçao, feature architectural styles influenced by Dutch colonial aesthetics, contributing to their cultural heritage and tourism appeal. In the Netherlands, reflections on the Dutch Empire evoke complex discussions about national identity, historical narratives, and colonial legacies. While some view the empire as a source of pride for its economic achievements and cultural contributions, others critique its exploitative practices, impact on indigenous populations, and legacy of slavery. Debates over historical memory and commemoration highlight ongoing efforts to reconcile the complexities of colonial history with contemporary values of tolerance, diversity, and human rights. Museums, educational initiatives, and public discourse play crucial roles in fostering awareness and understanding of the empire's multifaceted impact on Dutch society and global history. The Dutch Empire's role in shaping global geopolitics and cultural dynamics continues to be studied and debated. Colonial-era trade routes, economic networks, and strategic alliances established by the Dutch laid foundations for modern international relations and economic interdependence. Moreover, the empire's legacy influences contemporary discussions on post-colonialism, global development, and multiculturalism. Scholars and policymakers examine how historical injustices, inequalities, and socioeconomic disparities stemming from colonialism persist in present-day societies, prompting calls for reparative justice, reconciliation, and inclusive governance. Emerging in the late 16th century, the Dutch Empire rapidly expanded through the establishment of the Dutch East India Company, VOC, and the Dutch West India Company, WIC, which dominated trade routes, established colonies, and influenced global commerce. Key territories included the East Indies, Cape Colony, New Netherlands, and Suriname, each contributing to the empire's economic prosperity and cultural exchange. Throughout its history, the Dutch Empire faced challenges such as wars with European rivals, economic pressures, and shifts in global attitudes towards colonialism and slavery. These factors contributed to its eventual decline and restructuring in the 18th and 19th centuries, marking a transition from imperial dominance to a more limited role in international affairs. Studying the Dutch Empire remains relevant in contemporary times for several reasons. First, it offers insights into the complexities of global colonialism, including economic exploitation, cultural exchange, and the legacies of imperialism. By examining Dutch colonial practices and their impacts on indigenous populations and local economies, we gain a deeper understanding of historical injustices and their enduring consequences. Second, the Dutch Empire's legacy continues to shape modern legal systems, languages, infrastructure, and cultural identities in former colonies. Understanding these legacies informs discussions on multiculturalism, identity politics, and the challenges of post-colonial societies grappling with historical memory and reconciliation. Dutch colonial history provides valuable lessons for contemporary societies and policymakers. It underscores the importance of ethical governance, respect for cultural diversity, and sustainable development in global interactions. The empire's experiences highlight the complexities of power dynamics, economic exploitation, and the need for inclusive approaches to governance that respect human rights and promote equitable partnerships. Moreover, reflecting on Dutch colonial history prompts critical discussions on historical memory, accountability for past injustices, and efforts towards truth-telling and reconciliation. By acknowledging the complexities and legacies of colonialism, societies can strive towards a more just and inclusive future, where the lessons learned from history inform efforts to promote global cooperation, mutual understanding, and social justice. In conclusion, the Dutch Empire's journey from exploration and expansion to decline and legacy underscores its profound impact on world history and contemporary society. By studying its trajectory and reflecting on its lessons, we navigate towards a more informed and empathetic engagement with our shared global past and future.